Did you know the one-child family is the fastest growing family structure, growing 50% over recent decades? And that is very much a response to the growing pressures on modern parents, on your time, career, your finances, your mental load. It's a very high stakes question, but I don't believe it has to be overwhelming. I have 15 years of experience as a corporate strategist, and I'm also a mother. I've taken the same data-driven methods as well as leveraged the brilliant frameworks of family therapist and David Min to come up with a 5-step strategic playbook to make this decision with total confidence and clarity. Let's dive in. Step 1, deep reflection and unpacking biases. I'm going to ask you 5 questions in this section, and I want you to write everything down that comes to mind. If you have a partner, ensure that they're also working through these exercises. The first question is, what are some of the messages, verbal and nonverbal, you may have received from your own family, your community, your religion or culture, society at large, around giving your child a sibling or completing your family? For example, myself having one child, I get lots of questions on when am I going to have a second child, as if it is something that I should be doing. I have memories even of my father calling my cousin, who was an only child, a spoiled brat. So it's easy to see how some of these external biases can now feed into my perception and reality. The second question, what were your deepest and most formative feelings about being an only child or having multiple siblings, whatever was your situation? Did you feel lonely, overwhelmed, supported, neglected? Just have a think about that and write it all down. How might I be projecting those feelings I've just reflected on onto my current child, even though their circumstances are entirely different from my own? The sibling dynamic you may have experienced in the 80s or 90s is going to be different than what your child will experience today, with different economic times, different sets of parents, different societal norms. It's important to isolate your historical experience and separate that from your child's future. What are your deepest fears around having another child? For example, will I resent giving up some of my finite time and energy? Will I be able to love my second or third child as much as the others? How will my current child or children react to another sibling? Will I risk career momentum yet again? Write all of your fears down. And let's move to the last question. What are your deepest fears and anxieties around not having another child? Will I regret this in the future? Will my current child resent me for not having a sibling? Will I feel like our family is incomplete? Whatever comes to your brain, do not judge yourself. You just write it all down. This entire step 1 is about self-awareness. It's about uncovering your deepest biases and your fears and separating that from your true desires. It's important also to reflect and read back what you've written down and ask yourself, is this based on fact and reality, or is this based on a myth or bias? The greatest myth of all that we have in our society is the only child stereotype that I alluded to earlier, when in fact decades of research, including modern studies, show that only children are just as well adjusted, happy, and sociable as their peers with siblings. So for example, that is a myth that is not based in any fact or reality. Step 2 is the assumption test. Over the next 5 days, pretend you've made the final decision you will have another child. Journal every day over the next 5 days. Sit with that feeling of, yes, I'm going to have another child. What emotions are coming up for you? Are you feeling excited, ready to plan for the future? Or are you feeling overwhelmed and stressed? Does your brain go straight to the logistics of how on earth am I going to handle another baby? Every emotion that you feel is valid. Just write everything down over those 5 days. At the end of the 5 days, we are moving to the no assumption. You are going to pretend that you've made the final decision. You are not going to have another child. Your family as is going to be your complete family. How does that feel? Sit with the feelings and what is coming up for you. Journal every day for 5 days. Do you feel a sense of relief? Of, I can finally get my life started. I'm so excited to do XYZ with this additional time. Are you feeling a sense of loss, sadness, and regret? Sit with every feeling that comes up for you. Just do not try to renegotiate or make the decision in this step. Remember, you've made the decision. You're just sitting with the feelings of that decision. This step is about gathering really critical insights and data of what your gut is actually telling you. Step 3 is the conditional test. What conditions would have to be in place for you to say yes to having another child and feel really good about that decision? For example, it could mean securing additional support and help. So getting 10 more hours a week of childcare help, or even moving locations to be closer to family that may be able to help you. It could be your current child or children being certain ages. It could be moving to a bigger home. Think through and brainstorm what conditions would have to be in place for me to feel great about saying yes to another child. Next question is, what conditions would have to be in place for me to say, no, I'm not having another child, and feel really good about that decision? For example, it could be putting more time and effort into building community for your current child or children, having more play dates or activities. One of my conditions, which might seem silly to you that I brainstormed, was that I would be comfortable with paying for my child's friends to come on vacation with us when he's older and perhaps would like more company and not hang out with his parents. For me, the condition made sense because I knew it was so much more affordable to actually pay for vacation for another child instead of having another child just to fulfill that need of him having company when we are on holidays. Step 4 is the financial assessment. I am a former chartered accountant. I have a master's in professional accounting. I know that financially planning for the biggest financial investment of your life is very important. We are not going to go through a full-blown financial assessment in this phase, but I am going to ask you a series of questions, and I would like you to do your best in terms of budgeting for another child. The point is not to be perfect. It's not to get down to the dollar and cent, but it's about creating some understanding of how much financially this is going to cost your family. What will be your total childcare costs if you have another child? Net of any government subsidies that may apply to you. This can include the incremental cost of a new child, but it may also include additional costs of your current child or children during that early phase when you have a new baby and you're unable to care for them. What will be the approximate future cost of education if you add another child? Thinking of putting them in the private school system, how much would that be if you were going public? The answer might be 0. Career. What is a realistic, quantifiable decrease in income you can expect if you have another child? It could mean taking parental leave, a slower promotion path. It could mean returning back to work part-time because now you have more children and it does not seem as feasible to go back to work full-time. Think through the adjustment to your income. Is your current home large enough to have another child? If it is not, how much increasing housing costs if you add another child to your family? For this, you could do a little bit of quick research online. If you live in a 2-bedroom apartment, you could look at how much a 3-bedroom apartment is in your area. Approximation is absolutely fine. Do you have any debt, in particular high interest debt? How will having another child delay your ability to pay back that debt? This is an important question because if you have any high interest type debt, for example, credit card debt, the longer you wait to pay that off, the more exponential that interest accrues. So it is important to understand, if I have another child, this is how much debt I have, and I won't realistically be able to pay that off for the next year, 2 years, 3 years. My last question is, if you choose not to have another child, how will you reinvest that time, energy, and money into other life goals? For example, it could be paying off some of that debt early. Perhaps it's being able to fully fund some of your education goals. Perhaps it's additional family vacations or holidays. As a parent, you have a good idea of how much it costs to have a child. If you don't, I also did a full video where I revealed my actual costs of having a baby, and you can feel free to check that out for ballpark estimates in this section. Now, in this step, you are going to set aside 1 hour of dedicated time once the kids are in bed to have this discussion with your partner. And this is not a conversation you may have had in the past where you're like, so do you want to have another kid? No. Now you are coming to the conversation and saying, based on my journaling, it is clear to me that my answer is yes, but only if this condition is met. or my answer is no, and this is the justification for that based on my reflective journaling. I would suggest one person starts, share their learnings, and then have the other person go next. If your outcomes are different, that's certainly not a failure of the exercise. That is to be expected because you are different people who may have had different experiences. So now ask each other, what is that non-negotiable boundary? What is your condition? And is there any room for overlap between the two of you? Hopefully there are conditions in which both of you can come to the middle and make a decision that feels really, really good for your family. You are shifting the conversation from if we should have children to how are we going to address any misalignments that you may have. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and go through the exercise. And I really believe your future self will thank you no matter what decision you make. If you like this type of strategic planning and content, please subscribe to my channel, My Family Strategist, to get notified when new content comes out. In my next video, I'm going to reveal more of my personal side and share my own learnings when I went through this exercise myself and the conclusions that I came to.